There we go. All right. I'm in Hollywood because I'm a big phony. Bert's in the middle of Oklahoma because he's a man of the people. And
Saw the Outsider's house today.
What's that?
I saw the Outsider's house today.
You know, D. Del Rey looked at that when he was out there. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's get to our very patient guest here. The one and only Anthony Pompliano, who's going to talk to us about Bitcoin, right?
Let's do it. How are you guys?
Let's do it. All right. We're going underground on this podcast. We're going to circumnavigate the whole U.S. currency. We're going to get down to who Woodrow Wilson was and what the hell he did. Talk about what Devil's Island and the Outsider House. We're going to cover it all.
Let's start off with deflationary assets. Now, Anthony, I'm curious, what is that?
All right, let's back up.
It scared the shit out of me. I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be smart enough for this.
So back up and just talk about first, what is money, right? And I think that the key piece is just a belief system. The whole reason why any currency in the world's got value is because two people believe it has value and they're willing to exchange it for goods and services. And so when you kind of level set on that, then it comes down to, all right, there's a lot of things that can be money and have been money in the past, whether it's gold, seashells, dollars, Bitcoin, whatever.
Let me ask a quick question here. Is it bad? So then it's really not bad that there's no gold behind the U.S. dollar as long as we all believe, you know, if I give you $5, you know, it gets me this amount of M&Ms, as long as we agree to that, it doesn't really need anything behind it, right?
Yeah, so it basically comes down to how good is the money, right? So I think that's the key piece is anytime that you have a currency that can be inflated or printed at will, that's where issues come in. Doesn't mean that it's not money. It's still money. U.S. dollar, you guys use dollars, I use dollars. You know, a lot of people around the world use dollars. But what the real conversation is around is what's the best type of money, right? And so that's where I think a lot of people in the Bitcoin and gold world think that the U.S. dollar not being backed by anything and the government having the ability to print it is a bad thing.
Well, and here's the big conspiracy theory. Doesn't the Federal Reserve, aren't they in charge of printing it and all that? And aren't they outside of the federal government? Yeah,
so that is what is reported. That is how the system is structured. To give you a sense of how much money gets printed, this year alone, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, so think of that as like their bank account, has grown by 75%. They just created $3 trillion out of nowhere, and they started just sticking it in every nook and cranny of the financial system, sending checks to people. They sent over $1 billion to dead people, all kinds of crazy shit going on. And
why did they send it to dead people?
Well, the stimulus, right? So what they basically did is it's the government. It's pretty bureaucratic, and different divisions don't talk to each other. So Bill's alive in January. Bill dies at the end of January. We're going to send out stimulus checks. We don't know Bill's has died yet. So they literally just send a check to you, and you're dead. And so over $1 billion that they sent out in the stimulus program went to dead people.
That sounds like the beginning of a really good movie. Then a couple jerk-offs like me and Bert find the check. We, of course, go out and try and cash it. And what do they do with the money?
Yeah. Man's booty.
All right. So how concerned – I don't even want to ask the question. So if you can just sit there and print money. My thing, what I understood inflation back in the day when gold was behind it. So you got whatever. You got $100 million in gold. You got $100 million in cash. Each dollar's worth of gold, right? Then if you print another 100 million, you just devalued the dollar by 50% because you didn't get any more gold. So once you go off the gold standard, why is there still inflation? If there's nothing behind it, why don't they just print $1 million for everybody and we just stop working? Stupid question, but I had to ask it.
It's not so stupid. There's a lot of people who think that we should do that, right? Whether you call it universal basic income and don't give everyone $1 million, give them a couple $1,000s a month. Some people think that modern monetary theory, we should just print a bunch and give it directly to people in other ways. But I think ultimately what ends up happening is think about if supply and demand, right? So if I have dollars and everyone else doesn't have a lot of dollars, then obviously my dollars can buy more things, right? So I can come buy your house, say your house $1 million, and I want to buy your house. and I've got a lot of dollars and nobody else does. I can then say, well, you know what? I don't want to pay $1 million. I actually want to pay 800,000 because I got dollars and you want dollars, and there's not a lot of dollars floating around.
So this still all comes down to the fact that certain people want to have more than other people.
Of course.
If there's nothing behind it, you could just print all of this fucking money. Everybody could pay off their credit cards. Everybody could get out of debt, be in good moods, fix the roof or whatever. But then people be like, well, if that guy across the street has the same kind of roof as me, then that doesn't make me feel special.
Well, it's even worse than that, right? So here's the big thing. I keep saying that the virus basically exposed all the shams in society. And one of the biggest shams is all of this quantitative easing. People basically call it's universal basic income for rich people. So what do? Is they print a bunch of money, they push it out into the economy, asset prices go up. So if you're holding stocks, real estate, all these different assets, the prices of those go up, but the currency gets devalued. So if you think of rich people versus poor people, rich people own assets, and 50% of Americans don't own stocks, and about 40% or so can't come up with $400 for an emergency payment. So they live paycheck to paycheck with just cash in their bank. 100% of their wealth is in cash. And so poor people get poorer and rich people get richer. So look what happened in the economic crisis.
So when you push out a lot more money, I get that the dollar's devalued, sort of, because even though we're not on the gold standard, because there's more money out there. So that causes inflation. Is that why the asset price goes up?
So that's one of the concerns. So inflation is kind of this weird thing where there's official metrics and then there's all the unofficial metrics, right? All the finance crowd basically wants to be run intellectual Olympics is what I call it. But basically the reason why the asset prices go up is because it takes more dollars to buy the same asset. So you're holding, Tesla stock. Tesla's at $700. If they print a bunch of money, you need more dollars now to buy that same stock. The value of the stock didn't change. It's just that the dollar got weakened. Right. So look at gold, for example. A lot of people argue that since gold went off the gold standard, the dollar went off the gold standard, gold's gone up like 45x. But is that because gold got more valuable, or is that because the dollar, the price of the asset is denominated in dollars? Did the dollar go down? And so,
or was that from the fear that people had that there's nothing behind this, and someday I'm going to need to have a gold coin to get a turkey sandwich?
Yeah, look what's going on in Lebanon right now, right? Everyone always talks about
what's going on with Bert Kreischer. Bert Kreischer hasn't said shit in his tour bus.
I'm fucking fascinated. I've never realized any of this. I feel like I'm just listening. Keep going. So, tell me about Lebanon.
By the way, Bert's gonna go light all his dollars on fire by the end of this.
Bro, I love Bert. Just do me a favor. Can you just ease him into this information? Bert is the coolest dude I know. Please don't make him who I was 10 years ago when I was carving the Federal Reserve into my pumpkins on Halloween. Just please don't turn him into the fucking asshole I was.
So in Lebanon, for example, right now, their currency has fallen more than 50% against the dollar, meaning that went to sleep one night, you got 100 Lebanese pound, right? And that could buy you, let's say, 5 loaves of bread. All of a sudden, when you wake up in the morning, you have the same 100 Lebanese pounds, but now you can't buy 5 loaves of bread. You can only buy 2. So literally the currency is not as valuable as it was before.
How did that happen?
Well, because their central bank is, frankly, just doing stupid things, right? And so what ends up happening is the government or the central bank, depending on where you go in the world, there's a debate as to whether the central banks are actually controlled by the governments or they are independent agencies or organizations. And so essentially what happened is it dropped. And so 2 big issues occur. One is everyone who lives in cash, they don't have assets. They just see their wealth getting deteriorated away. Right. And then they're worried about, can I actually go to the grocery store and buy food tomorrow? Right. I'm getting paid the same amount of money from my job. Right. I'm still getting paid 100 Lebanese pounds a month, but it can't buy me the same thing. So in fact, I'm actually making less money and I have less in my bank account. But rich people love this stuff. Why? Because they own real estate, they own stocks, they own all the assets. And so now it takes more dollars or pounds or whatever to buy those same assets. So it would be like you sitting at home in a $1 million home. All of a sudden you see the dollar being devalued. Now your home's worth $3 million and you didn't do shit. They just literally devalued the dollar and now your house is worth more money. And
Can I ask you a question about these rich people?
Yeah.
What is their problem? Because I was a regular guy, right? I worked in a warehouse. I got arrested for drinking and driving. You know, I did those things. I ate pizza late at night. And then I started telling shit jokes on stage. And now I'm a wealthy guy. But I don't want this to happen. I don't want people to like, I don't, like, even if I have more than the other guy, I'm not excited that then, oh, you got to pay more to go to my show, or you got to pay more to buy my DVD back in the day. Who exactly are these rich people that get excited that people have less and don't care that there'll be somebody where, depending on where you are economically, having less for one person is, oh, okay, my house, my whatever, my job that I have isn't worth as much, but I can still support my family. Some people that just dipping that much is all of a sudden, you know, somebody's not going to eat that night in the house. Like, how can somebody get off on that kind of fucking misery?
So there's really two buckets of people that I'd put it into. So one is, there's definitely just dictators. So if you look in Venezuela, Zimbabwe, even in countries like Lebanon, that's not truly a dictatorship, but pretty damn close. It's like the dictator playbook. They go into a country, they take control politically, they own all the assets. They just start killing people, stealing stuff, right? They just accumulate as many assets as they can. And then imagine if your bank account as an individual, if I said to you, hey, every time you need money, you can just edit the number in the bank account so that there's enough there for whatever you need. That's essentially what the government gets to do through their central banks. And so if you're a dictator and you're a bad dude, that's what you do. You just start editing the number, right? You're printing more and more money, and that's actually hurting the people, and it's helping you because all the asset prices are going up. You're getting rich. That's kind of at the political level. In terms of quote unquote rich people, I actually don't think that they're really that bad. All they do is they just understand the game, right? So from a financial education standpoint, most of the country doesn't understand how the system's set up, and therefore they end up getting hurt by it. But the people who understand how the game works, they convert their dollars into assets. They buy stocks, they buy real estate, they buy, all these things, and then they just let the system kind of run its course, and they end up benefiting. But I don't think they're necessarily cheering for, the pain of the kind of bottom 50%. They're just saying, hey, look, I know how the system works, and I'm not going to see my wealth get deteriorated away. I'm going to go ahead and protect myself.
That's fair.
That's what I did. That's what I did. That's what I did.
Go ahead. Sorry, Bert.
No, that's what I like. In all of this, I remember getting that's what I did. That's what I did.
What did you do?
I bought stocks when it was really low, and I was not previously invested in stocks, and we bought a new house. So I'm listening to this going, okay, I'm one of the bad people, but I don't want to be a bad person.
Yeah. So here's the whole thing is the way that you solve a lot of these problems, right, is the IMF wrote a paper in 1998 or something, and they basically described that inflation is one of the leading causes of wealth inequality. So there's the people who buy assets and the people who don't. That's about 50-50 in the country. And so obviously the people who own the assets end up getting rich, the rich get richer, and the people that own cash, they get poorer, right? So poor get poorer. And so what you end up doing is Bitcoin, and why everyone's so excited about it, there's a lot of people who call it the people's money, right? Or a deflationary type asset. All that means is that no one can print it. The United States can't print more. China can't print more. Russia can't print more. Any other country, dictator, politician, nobody has control over it. And so if there's a set amount, 21 million that'll ever get created, basically you're protected from all of that inflation and the printing of money and all that crazy shit. And so people are slowly just opting to this new asset and saying, look, I don't want to play this game anymore. I'm going to kind of peacefully protest it by going and buying this other asset and putting my wealth there.
Let me ask you this. If Bitcoin was a band, where are they in their career right now? As far as the belief of Bitcoin, did they got one hit? Did they come out with Appetite for Destruction and Instant Classic? Because I remember when it first came out, there was a big swell of publicity about it. And then I thought a couple of guys got whacked. I don't know. I fall asleep watching TV a lot, so I might be combining, reality with fictional TV shows on Netflix. But where is it right now as far as the belief system? Is there any sort of stat out there on the world population scale? How many people believe in Bitcoin versus people going that's fucking crazy. Don't take these devalued American dollars and buy Bitcoin. I thought I was riveting and interested. He was actually frozen.
I think Bitcoin is like Cardi B. You've heard of her, but you've never heard of any of her songs.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I know who Cardi B is.
Yeah, but name a song?
You know what annoys me about Cardi B is she's fucking funnier than I am. She's fucking hilarious. Forget about all the rap and all that shit that she does, which is great and everything. But she's fucking hilarious.
To Anthony, I had said to Bill that Bitcoin is Cardi B. You know who she is, but you aren't familiar with her songs.
I think that that's probably pretty fair in the sense of every day becomes more popular, right? But it's going to take a long time. And the big question is, does Cardi B become, the next Madonna? Or does Cardi B just kind of fizzle out?
Yeah, because she's huge right now.
She is 10 years from now.
But you're saying, that's all right. Well, how did you get involved in all of this stuff?
2014, I was working at Facebook, and somebody was talking about Bitcoin. I said, hey, that sounds interesting. Asked somebody if it was real. An engineer told me it's stupid. So I literally did nothing. And then in 2016, somebody came to me and said, hey, like, this thing's pretty real. You should take a look at it. And so started building mining facilities. So the whole way that the system's run and kind of governed is people build these like data centers all around the world. There's literally hundreds of thousands of them. And we started building them. And basically by taking computing power and running the software, you get paid to do it. And so that was kind of how we started doing it. And then it's like anything, right? If you put money into something, you start paying more attention to it, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, wait, this thing's really real. And here we are.
Who are the people behind Bitcoin, and how do I know that I can trust them when anybody, it seems, who's ever run a system of money has not been trustworthy?
Who are the people behind the Federal Reserve? Name one person at the Federal Reserve right now.
Allen Ginsberg.
I don't even know who that is.
I don't either. It just sounded like a real name to me.
But the point
well,
being,
they always have like the spokesperson. I do find it funny, though. The president is always trying to guess. Are they going to raise rates? Are they going to go down? They're literally telling you that the president has no fucking control over these people. Everybody has lost a shitload of fucking money for the most part during this pandemic, except for the banks. Like they can't hit just pause on the economy like everybody's been saying. And when we all get back to work, you just pick up again at your next payment. They're like, we'll give you a 3-month breather, and then you owe us 4 fucking months.
But 45 million people lost their jobs. That's the crazy part about all this. 45 million people lost their jobs over the last 4 months, yet the stock market's hitting all-time highs. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, how does that work?
It's because there's a dislocation between the asset prices, right, the stock market and all these things, and the actual economic data, but it's because the Federal Reserve and lawmakers step in and they intentionally manipulate the economy. Now, that's their job, right? So to be fair, the Federal Reserve's job is to keep people employed, manage an economy, do all of that.
It's to keep the Ponzi scheme going.
You said it, not me, but I'm not going to disagree. And so here's like the big question, right? Like this is something that the Bitcoin community talks about a lot that I think's got a lot of credence. Why do they take your taxes if they could just edit their bank account for more money? Right? How do they do that? And so you start to kind of ask some of these questions and you realize like, look, there's a system in place. That system is built under certain rules and people pretty much don't know how the system works. And so they just go along with it, right? I got to pay my taxes. So basically a lot of people want to know, look, if I pay taxes, why do I pay taxes if the government can just edit their bank account and add more money whenever they want, right? Over the last couple of months, the government has increased the Fed's balance sheet by 75%.
Why is that then? Why do you think, is that to keep, do they just have this belief that if they just made everybody rich, nobody, or that they didn't take taxes? If you can just fucking print money now, if there's nothing behind it, why the fuck do you got to take, 30% from this guy? You get past a certain tax bracket, they'll take over 50%. And you do the job and they, like I did the job and you get more than I do. And I fucking did it. So my thing is it a control thing? Is it just like just a fucking bunch of haters Well, like, what's the point of being rich? If everybody's rich, then I don't feel special. Is that what the fuck they're doing?
No, I think, look, and part of the problem is, right, in very overgeneralized manner, is just they can't just print all of the money, right, and literally just print trillions and trillions and trillions forever, because, again, the currency will fail, right? Literally, it'll lose all its value. So we've seen that in Venezuela, Zimbabwe, whatever. So there's this balance between what they basically would argue is they would say, hey, look, we don't ever print money or do anything, so you got to pay your taxes so we can pay for all the expenses we have. But in times of crisis, we're going to print a bunch of money. We're going to hand it to people. And so they do all kinds of crazy shit, right? Like, it's one thing if you're going to print
money. That's sort of fair if they're only doing it during times of crisis, I guess. The
problem is that it's like a drug addict, right? So, like, a great example would be like a crack addict. You've been sober your whole life. You try crack for the first time. You get high. You're like, huh, that was interesting. Go do it a second time. Then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I like that. You do it a third time. If you keep doing it, you got to take more and more crack to keep getting the same high, right? And eventually, if you take too much, you just overdose and die. That's basically what an economy does when it gets addicted to quantitative easing or money printing. So we started to print some money. We got a little high. We liked it. Did it again. Liked it. Well, now, if you go back to 2008, 2009, we only printed hundreds of billions. Now, this time around, 10 years later, when we go to print money, now we're printing trillions. And so the number keeps getting bigger because we got to print more to get high, right? And so if they keep doing this, at some point you pay for the sins, right? Now, I don't know if that's...
Is this why the president ages in dog years? Because they look at all this stuff and are they just thinking like, is this Ponzi scheme going to collapse during my watch?
Let me ask you this question. If Bill and Bert ran for president, how long do you think you would last before you would literally just throw your hands up in the air and just be like, fuck this, I'm out?
Oh, if they just went into our Twitter accounts, I would think that we would be over before it started.
I would just be there for the inauguration party. I'd tap out the next morning.
Yeah,
you know what, you would, Bert, and you'd fucking run for vice president so you could have all the fun. Be out there Al Goring it, having a good time, and I'd have to be answering for everything. I did not call that woman a cunt at the Funny Bone.